Whispers in my head, what you gonna do? 선택의 길을.
Today I want to look at doing a hung hem on your circular sock machine, and I'm using my Dean & Beans 3D printed sock machine. And right now I'm just setting this up using my waste yarn. I like to do roughly 13 rows of waste yarn just because that gives me enough depth so that I'm not nervous handling my sock once I've taken it off the machine. Okay, so I have it nicely threaded into the setup bonnet, and I'm going to crank out roughly 13 rows, and I will see you back here in a minute.
Only yours, yeah. 쏟아지는 말 이미 어지러운 이 세상 속에서.
Okay, after 13 rows, I'm going to go ahead and take my waste yarn out, and I'm going to put the ravel cord in. The ravel cord is a thin single row of what I'm using is it's kind of like fishing cord, I think, fishing line. But you can use a single row of any kind of waste yarn as long as it's the right weight for your machine. And then I like to take a clip, a weighted clip, and hold the two together just to make sure that they stay in place while you crank around one single row. Okay, now that we've done one row of ravel cord, we're ready to start on the first row in your main color of the hung hem. I'm capturing the end of my ravel cord in the weighted hook. That's going to keep it from pulling when you crank around and keep everything nice and tidy. All right, let's just reset my row counter to 0. I'm going to switch to my main color. You don't need a long tail cast on for a hung hem. You only need to do enough so that you can weave in your ends. And I like to make it just a little bit extra. Okay, to start your hung hem, you're going to turn with the main color in, so your main mark is at 11 o'clock. I have cut 6 pieces of contrasting color scrap yarn that we're going to use as a little trick to make hanging the hem easier. All right, after you've started your first row of your main color, crank around until your main mark is at 12 o'clock. We're going to insert the scrap yarn at each one of the marks on your cylinder, of each of the 6 marks on your cylinder. So to do this, just pull the needle back, and you're going to take your hook, your latch hook, and just pull the yarn through halfway through, and then you just want to make sure that you pull that piece of yarn in, so it's hanging down inside your cylinder, and then just crank around until you get to the next mark. Okay, let me get a little closer here. There we go. All right, so we want to put the yarn in at every single mark, and you want to remember to be very consistent. I'm putting it to the right side of each mark, and it doesn't matter if you do it to the right side or to the left side of the mark. You just want to make sure that you're pulling it through consistently on either side of that mark for every single of your 6 scrap yarn. All right, so if you see here, I've now captured that scrap yarn inside this stitch. And you want to be careful to make sure that your stitches don't come off of each needle. I want to zoom in here so you can see where I'm getting your latch hook in order to get your scrap yarn into the actual stitch. So you're going just up above the ravel cord into your main color, and you're just going to pull through. Oops. Oh, maybe I should get my hands out of the way. You can see here that I'm just pulling half of the yarn through, half of the scrap yarn through, in order to capture that stitch. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. And remember, you're going to be under tension. So if it feels a little tight, that's okay. As you pull it through, the other thing you want to be sure to try and do is to keep it out of the way of the other stitches so that it doesn't get caught on either needle to the right or left of your scrap yarn. Okay, I can see that I have dropped 2 stitches here, and this does happen sometimes when you go too fast. We're pulling out each of these stitches, the main mark, and sometimes you might drop a stitch. So it's very easy to fix. I'm just going to take my latch hook here and pull the yarn through and get that stitch back on the needle. Okay, that's one, and then we'll do the other. So I pull out the needle, and then I'm going to try and get it with my other finger so you can see. Pull out the needle, and then I'm going to take the previous stitch off. That's for the ravel cord. And then I'm going to grab the main color yarn and pull that stitch through with my latch hook. There we go, got it. Pull it through the ravel cord, and it's under tension, so sometimes I need to take my tool just to push the ravel cord down. Enough room to get that yarn onto the needle. Okay, I just want to get a close-up of getting the scrap yarn onto a stitch. Pull it out. Here we have got your latch hook through, and you're just going to pull 1/2 of that yarn and then secure it down into the center of your cylinder. Okay, now that I've inserted all 6 of my scrap yarn pieces, I'm going to go ahead and crank out 30 rows for my hem. I'm doing this in the main color of the sock. Many people like to make a contrast color hem. And if you wanted to do that, of course, the 30 rows would all be in your contrast color. And then as soon as you hang the hem, you're going to switch over to your main color. However, sometimes if you're just trying to get as much use, or maybe you don't have enough of your contrast color and you're trying to save yarn, you can do the first 13 or 14 rows in your main color, because that's going to be on the inside of your sock, and then do the last 16 or 17 rows in your contrast color that will be shown on the outside of your sock. Just before you finish your 30th row, stop at the main mark at 6 o'clock and very carefully pull out your soft weight. Be very careful not to pull on the scrap yarn or the ravel cord. Once you've got the soft weight free, pull down on the setup bonnet and take the soft weight out. All right. Now you're ready to pull up your hem and hang it on each one of the needles. Okay, let me get a little light on this so that you can see better. And this is very, very delicate work here when you're pulling up the hem, because there's no weight to hold your stitches down, which means that you're going to need to be very careful that you don't pull all of your work right off the needles. So very delicately, you're going to grab each one of your scrap yarn and fold that hem over. You need to, while you're pulling the yarn up and folding it over, you also need to be careful that you're not dropping the stitches. Now, I like to pull the very first one and just get it into place. I always put my yarn in the stitch to the right of each mark. And so when I pull up the yarn, I need to be sure to hang each stitch on the needle to the right of each mark. So you just need to be consistent with where you're placing your stitches. Okay, let me get a close-up here so you can see how I am just hanging each stitch. I'm going to hold this yarn down because, there's no weight, and then I'm going to just keep it steady with my other finger on my left hand as I pull the stitch up using the waste yarn as a guide. Okay. And this is it's a little bit fiddly and delicate. You definitely want to take your time to get each stitch hung, because it's very easy to drop a stitch here. So again, I'm going to hold it down with one finger and keep it steady with my other while I pull that stitch on. And once you get the hang of that, it's so really that you don't have a run in your hem, but still delicate work. I'm just going to advance the crank a little bit to keep these stitches stable here. Now, if you're going to advance a stitch before you've finished hanging all of the stitches, you just need to make sure that the main mark on the cylinder hasn't hit the yarn break yet to start the next row. Okay, I've dropped a stitch. Let me just pop that back on really quickly. There we go. That is so easy to drop a stitch when you're doing this. All right, you can see that main mark is just before the yarn break. Now that I've got 5 of the cornerstone stitches hung, I'm going to go in and do each segment between the stitches. And if you've placed your cornerstone stitches correctly, then when you fill in the segments, you will have 1 bar to hang for every single needle. Okay, now I want to just get a little close up here so you know what I mean when I say bar. What you're hanging is you're grabbing this line of yarn that comes between each stitch, between the ravel cord and the waste yarn. So you can see the ravel cord is green, the waste yarn is yellow. Be careful with these. You can take them out once you've already completed each section and you know that each stitch has been accounted for. So now I'm going through and I'm just grabbing the bar and hanging it. It's really good to have bright, vibrant for your waste yarn and ravel cord so that you can see them against your sock yarn.
Whispers in my head, what you gonna do? 선택의 기로에 난 지켜내려 해. 쉽지 않아도 진실한 나만의 beliefs. You know what they say, don't brag about what you have. Be careful and be humble, otherwise you should be ready to stumble. You know what they say, 자신감이 없니? 왜 당당하게 살지를 못해? Keep walking your way, don't look back. 너만의 길이야. Even when you fall, don't look back. 사실은 말이야. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. 'Cause it's only yours. Only yours, yeah. 쏟아지는 말 이미 어지러운 이 세상 속에서 어둠 속의 light 붙잡아 진실한 나만의 beliefs. 차가운 바람 그득하니 앉아 내 마음속에 새겨둔 작은 위로를 또 꺼내야 하나. 우울함의 파도를 가라앉혀. But when you feel like giving up, remember, keep walking your way, don't look back. 너만의 길이야. Even when you fall, don't look back. 사실은 말이야. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. 'Cause it's only yours. Only yours, yeah. Nobody knows.
Now that I'm finishing up the last couple of hem stitches, if you are doing a contrasting color, now is the time that you want to switch over to your main color. Since I'm not doing a contrasting hem, I'm just going to continue on with the first row of the leg of the sock. All right, now I want to take a look at what the finished product looks like. Here you see is the outside of the hung hem. It looks very clean, it's very easy, and on the inside it's also a very clean finish. I do have one spot here where I doubled up where I hung the hem, the stitch, but you can see on the outside it looks fine. On the inside, there is just a tiny little spot where it bubbled up a little bit because I put 2 stitches on 1 needle. Again, you can see it on the inside just barely, but on the outside, it looks just fine. Such a nice, clean, and easy finish to your socks, and it is, in all honesty, my favorite way to do a simple sock. The hung hem is so much easier than using a ribber on a circular sock machine. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. You were able to get some tips and tricks, learn how to do a hung hem very simply and easily. If there are any other tutorials that you're interested in, please just drop them in the comments below, and I would love to record those and share them with you. Thanks for watching.
Even when you